This is the book that we want to, a new book that we want to launch today. So I will show you the copy of this book. Could you see the design of the cover? It is a very it's a book that is published by Joy Publishing, and it's a series, a book that focusing on the Fukushima. And this series is on a nuclear weapon and nuclear energy production and the threat of nuclear war. And a serious book on nuclear issue. And this book unfolds how we understand this current situation and how we can understand human history and civilization, such a broad information and background. And there are three authors, and Kimchi, Professor Lau's team production. And I want to introduce you about these three authors. And first of all is Professor Liu Kimchi. She is Professor Liu, as you all know. She has taught in Lingnan University for 33 years, and she's director of the executive team of the Global University for Sustainability. And she's also a board member of Peace Women across the globe. She has edited a lot of books. And I am using directly the introduction in this book. And the second author is Ms. Huang Xiaomei. And Xiaomei, she is a freelancer writer and who is based in Hong Kong. And she teaches Chinese, Spanish, and English. And she's also a researcher, writer, and interpreter. She's quite young and very talented. And the third author, He Zhixiong, and his main research topic is on rural reconstruction. So he's a researcher. She's an executive committee member of the Beijing Liangshu-Ming Rural Reconstruction Center. And also, so I want to introduce these three authors so that we can all get to know them. Please turn on your camera. So now I want to invite Professor Lau to briefly introduce the collaboration between three authors. And it took almost like a decade for them to edit and write this book. And please invite Professor Liu to share with us her the journey of this book publishing.
Thank you very much. So, so you see here the book, and I think the cover design is quite striking and very attractive. And well, first of all, this project actually started very soon after the accident happened, and so the initial title was 3 years after. But then now you see that the book title is 10 years after. So that means actually it has taken us over 7 years to actually work on the book and to do translations. So initially it was a collection of essays, which was to facilitate teaching and also discussion purposes. But then later on, some friends said, well, why don't you publish a book, write it up so that people get to know more about what actually happened, try to be as objective as possible, present the facts from different sides, but then also come up with different interpretations of why this has happened, how this has happened, and what is the current situation, and what can we see into the future. So we have had many meetings among the team, and many people have been involved. And I would like to thank especially Sun Ge here, and she has been with us the whole time, helping to select the papers, and some of her papers are also in this book. So this book is basically finalized by the three of us with Huan Xiaomei and also with He Jixiong. And so the style, actually I would like to make a side point, that is Huan Xiaomei is more an art person and He Jixiong a science person. So with combining the merits, so you can see that in this book we have a style which tries to be to explain things, to talk and dialogue with the readers, but at the same time present as many facts as possible. So I would like to thank not only Huan Xiaomei and He Jixiong, but the whole team. And we've listed over 20 names in the preface. So it's a team effort. And I would also like to thank the editor, Ye Tong, from the joint publishers. He has been very encouraging and very helpful. And so now you can see that we have the book before us. This book is well written with the Chinese readers in mind. And so we were trying to address some of the problems that we think the Chinese readers may have. So the first question is, I think we hope to invite the readers to look into the details of what happened, and also what is the current situation now, especially inside the Fukushima power plant. What is the situation with the reactors 1 and 3 in particular? So instead of making sweeping statements such as that, well, we have faith that we can take care of this and science can come up with some way of addressing the issue, or having very apocalyptic pessimism to say that, well, it's the end of the world. So instead of these two extremes, so can we look at what is the actual situation and then come to our own interpretation? And my last remark is, since this is addressed to the Chinese readers, I think we are dealing with a dilemma. The dilemma is very similar to the debate within China and also maybe within the global South about whether we should develop so that we can get out of poverty, improve the livelihood of the majority of the people at the expense of the environment. So it seems that, well, between ecological strategies and economic strategies of well-being, we have to choose either one of them. And I think this debate has been there in China and in Global South for a long time. And I think we need to deal with this, because there's also the proposal that after we have developed, after we have lifted our living standards, then we can address the environmental issues. But then it could be too late. And we are also seeing all the climate disasters that are before us. And so similar to that kind of issue, we are also having this question very much challenging us in China. That is, should we modernize at all costs, as quickly as possible, as intensely as possible? And we may be, luckily, by chance, we may escape the problems that have well, plagued some other nations. So I think maybe there is too much faith in so-called science and technology that sometimes we consciously or maybe unconsciously or subconsciously try to turn a blind eye to the evils and problems of science. And so even if we have seen very serious nuclear power plant accidents, first in the Soviet Union, Chernobyl, in 3 Mile Island in the United States, and then in Japan, these are all countries where the technology is quite advanced. And even in these countries, we see these accidents happen. So that people say, actually having a nuclear power plant is like having a bomb in your own backyard, in your own home, and you don't know when it may explode. So of course, we try to take more precautions, but history has taught us these lessons. So should we take heed of these problems? Then the last question is, that we have to address is, I think today we have invited speakers from Japan and from Korea and from China to talk, to dialogue, because we see that it is like the pandemic, the radioactive contamination does not respect borders. It goes beyond the borders. And now with the dumping of the contaminated water, we see that the whole of the sea would be polluted, would be contaminated. So it is, we cannot resolve these questions by one country alone. We can only resolve them by working together, and also to have the well-being, the welfare of the whole humanity in mind when we look at these issues. And so I think today we have had Dr. Rebecca Johnson here with us, and she's from ICAN that got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017. And ICAN is the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. So if we have to tackle the question of the nuclear power, an underlying and more fundamental question is to tackle the question of nuclear weapons. And hence, it's so important for disarmament, for nuclear non-proliferation. And I think these are questions that maybe the Chinese readers will be, and hopefully will be also looking at, and also try to work for a future of safety and security. Thank you.
谢谢建之。看看小梅和
Thanks, Professor Liu. Let's see whether Xiaomei or Zhixiong will go first. Oh, thanks.
To everyone. My name is Huang Xiaomei, and one of the 3 authors of the book. I'm actually also helping to do the interpretation, as some of you might have recognized me before for the forum. So I have spoken in the webinar many times, but this is the very first time as a speaker, and it's really a great honor. Thank you, Professor Lau. So I was part of the second South-South Forum working group back in the 2012. And I am very grateful that today, after 9 years, here I am to present a book in the 8th South-South Forum. And I wanna I want to take this occasion to express my gratitude, because I owe this to all of you, to all the speakers and all the discussants, to all the sessions also, from whom and where I learned and also gained my power to write, to think, and also to speak. Last year in October, when Professor Lau Kin-chi, who is my lifelong teacher, asked me if I could help to draft a book about Fukushima nuclear disaster, I said, sure, it's my great pleasure, it's my great honor, while I seriously doubt myself because I only have 3 weeks to accomplish my part. And apart from the fact that on March 11th, 2011, there happened an ecological, environmental, and humanity catastrophe in Fukushima, Japan. Just like Professor Lau put it earlier, I was more like an art person, so I knew next to nothing about it. How come? Because just like most of us in China or anywhere else but Japan would think, well, it was in Japan, nothing to do with us. Unfortunately, as all of us learn today, that is far from the truth. So I started the writing anyway, and here we are. As Professor Lau mentioned earlier, the book is targeted at those who don't know much about how nuclear power works, about why it started and where it will end. So we focus on the disaster happened in Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, teasing out the origin, the happening, and the aftermath. So while doing the research for the book, we also watched, well, at least I did also watch a lot of movies related to the event, whether it is a drama, a documentary, a TV program, or even a Korean thriller called Pandora. So my point is, this book is not just a collection of cold facts or scientific statistics. We hope we can reach the readers through the eyes of the direct victims, through the animals that were abandoned, through the contaminated soil and grass, river, and also air. Also through the people that are still fighting for their lands. So there are many questions, as today we also find in our discussion that there are many questions in the book, answered or unanswered. And we hope we can start the thinking of us. Fukushima in Kenji, as some, I think speaker also mentioned, Professor Lau mentioned also, that Fukushima means fortunate mountain. So, but as tonight's speaker have sadly shown to us, after 10 years, the land that was once rich of agricultural production is still in silence. And the people who fled from where they once called home have no chance to return. I'm thrilled. I'm very happy that the book is published, but I'm also very sad that we still need it. We still need more words to spread out. We still need more people. We still need everyone who is enjoying the cool AC in this heat to know what price we are paying, or at least others are paying. We need to know what hopes we have beyond the mushroom cloud. So thank you all for your listening, and thank you, Professor Lau Kin-chi, for dragging me into this. And finally, special thanks to all our friends from around the world for this sharing. Thank you.
谢谢小梅。请志雄。
Thanks, Xiaomei. Please let us invite Zhixiong. You are the only author with a scientific background. Thanks, Professor Sun. I want to share briefly my reflection and some thought. So I really appreciate Kimchi because I also joined this team halfway through, and because I started to join this project since 2019. So it's a joint effort to make such book possible. So for me, I'm very, it's my honor, as I have learned a lot about nuclear energy and nuclear knowledge, and which has largely changed my impression on nuclear. Because I have a scientific background, I'm very interested in nuclear energy. But because a traditional education see nuclear as a high tech, and so we kind of make it like a myth or something, a magical power. And we didn't learn we didn't learn about what is nuclear crisis and the danger of nuclear energy. Not until I started to do the research on this book didn't I know so thoroughly about nuclear. So I believe this book is very good and for general audience. So after the earthquake and the Fukushima accident, and it is a very serious consequence. Now, so I want to ask our general audience, what has left in our mind or in our memory? So maybe like me, I used to think it is a very like high technology power plant. And yeah, it's quite normal that sometimes accident happened. Could it, but that's it, and someone else will fix it, and it has nothing to do with daily life. A lot of, at that time in 2011, a lot of people, they went to the supermarket to buy salt. Maybe they have heard a rumor that by eating salt, we can prevent the radiation from affecting us. Maybe because the radioactive so because the reason why they want to hold salt, because they feel like, oh, maybe when ocean is polluted, the salt, the price of the salt will go up. So this is kind of the condition that a lot of us have. If there's a nuclear accident happens in our daily life or in our normal life, what would happen? So I feel like this book published at this time is very timely to help people to understand better about nuclear technology and how it is related to our daily life. For me personally, because of being able to join this team, there's 3 points that impressed me the most, which have changed me largely. Maybe it is not me that have these transition. So the first is that we thought that the possibility of a nuclear disaster is quite low. It's just an accident, and it will be solved or the accident will be solved and clean very quickly. Even this is if it's not a big accident, there's a lot of problems here and there. A scientific management cannot prevent this from happening at all. And it is unavoidable. It is just a matter of whether it is serious or not. If the media doesn't expose this or doesn't speak about it, we won't know it. And as long as it is serious and big enough that everyone knows, it is already too late for us to stop it. It is not an accident that if we want to stop and it can stop. It is beyond our viewing. It is beyond our view. So the second point is that from a society perspective, so that the main media always tells us that, oh, nuclear energy is so clean, it won't emit CO2, and why, and we don't know why it is always be erected by water, because it needs water, and the wastewater cannot be fully dealt and fully clean up. So it will no doubt release to the environment. I think it's the most dangerous. The nuclear waste and the wastewater are the most polluted items that we have. So, and the third point is from economical perspective. A lot of this report shows us nuclear energy and is the cheapest. And I really want to ask, it is really the cheapest? Of course it is not. Because a lot of the reports on economy, they don't see the externality of nuclear energy. For example, they won't count the nuclear waste and the cost that we have on sorting out or dealing with the nuclear waste. So putting all this in mind, no matter whether you bury the waste or you release them into the ocean, they are very costly, environmentally costly. So in the short term, no matter whether it's in short term or in long term, we have to put in mind the environmental costs. So from these 3 points are what I have, what impressed me the most and what I have changed. So I think it is very good if, as people living in this earth, we should get to know this industry. And I have also heard that a lot of the people who live by a nuclear plant, they are lobbied and they are brainwashed, and there are a lot of the money used in such in such things. So I believe in such these books being able to be launched is very valuable. So I hope please pay more attention and to nuclear issue. And I know a lot of Japanese after the Fukushima disaster are forming a lot of a studying group to get to learn more about this nuclear industry. Thank you all for being here. 谢谢三 thanks three authors. Actually, I also invite our editor, Ye Tong. But because he fell sick suddenly, and he asked me to express his regards and a congratulations to the team. And just now, and Zhixiong shared that he really wished this book could offer a new perspective for everyone. And I know that it is, I realize it's a very good point, a very good suggestion.
When I recall that in 2011, I was, as planned, I went to Japan for a scholarship and then to teach. And then at that time, I've spent 3 months in Japan. At that time, and I realized in person the panic of the Japanese common people, and also their fear for the things that they cannot see and cannot feel. I also saw that in various bookshops, you can see that all the bestsellers, no matter it is a big bookstore or it's a small one, in the the bestseller must be a book related to the nuclear disaster, nuclear power plants, all the topics related to the nuclear power, and it will occupy the whole bookshelf, and the books come and go very quickly. So in 2011, the publishing circle in Japan quickly published a bunch of new books on the topic of nuclear power. So we can imagine that the outcome is it was almost like an enlightenment to the Japanese common people. So it's quite a shame that this kind of enlightenment only came after the nuclear disaster. Before that, however, the scientists trying to shout out loud, trying to be the whistleblower about the possibility, the chance of the nuclear disaster, but then right after the nuclear disaster, once upon a time, nobody ever read those nuclear power writers become very popular, become the best-selling sellers. So we hope that this kind of books, that we still need this kind of books, as Xiaomei mentioned earlier. But the truth is, we still need them. And in the Chinese language world, as far as I know, this book on Fukushima disaster is the first one ever that tried to discuss on the danger of the nuclear power, and also to cover the whole process of the Fukushima disaster. So we really need this kind of book because we need to understand the nuclear the threat of nuclear power that we don't know about. On that basis, then we can try to think how to avoid it, how to prevent from it happen from its happening, and how to start from our daily life, from the consumption, from our daily consumption, to try to control this monster, to control it from spreading around. So this is a very difficult task, and we cannot know for sure how much we can achieve from doing it, but somebody has to do it. And as Professor Lau has mentioned earlier, we really hope that something like this, something like the Fukushima disaster, this kind of trying to fix after the disaster, we really hope things like this won't happen ever again in China or in any other parts in the world. So such a good book worth sharing. I personally have already read it, and I also learned a lot from it. Thank you for a big thanks to the three authors. And because of the time limit, here is the end of our book launch. I believe especially the speakers from Japan must be tired already. And we are supposed to have a Q&A, but because of the time limit, maybe in future we would have a chance for that. Thank you very much. Especially thanks all the speakers. Thank you to the thanks to the speakers from the Fukushima panel. So here we end.